God. These budget sessions are a little tough. So. You all set, Kim?
Mr. Chairman, we are live.
Okay, thank you very much. And if we have anybody live on the Zoom screen, welcome. Welcome to everybody here this evening. We've got 4 bills that we want to get through tonight. The first one for our consideration. Well, first we better do a roll call. Thank you, Kim.
Senator Anderson.
Excused.
Senator Furphy.
Here.
Senator McEwen.
Here.
Senator Pappas.
Here.
Chairman Landon.
And I'm here.
You have a quorum.
Physically at least. So let's take up Senate File 14, telecommunicator cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And Mr. Garrett, maybe I saw you back there. Would you like to come forward and remind us of this bill? And committee, I believe that we have a suggested amendment. Just I believe that it is connected to the back of in your packet. It's on the back of the bill, and maybe you can touch on that proposed amendment. Richard, good evening. Thank you for being here. Run us through what we did during the interim on this bill.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, and thank you, members of the committee, for your work during the interim on this, what we at the American Heart Association think of as a very important bill. I'm Richard Garrett, State Government Relations Director with that organization. As the committee has heard during the interim and elsewhere, heart attacks are the leading cause of death in the state of Wyoming, and anything we can do as an organization in partnership with the legislature to reduce that number is a good thing. The goal of this bill is to empower our state emergency dispatchers to coach an emergency caller through administering CPR pending arrival of ambulance services. It's a training that most dispatchers, frankly, in the state already have, but we have about nine dispatch centers still in the state that do not have that capability. It's important, I think, that the training be consistent with national guidelines, and so we're grateful for the intent of the amendment to clarify that point. I know I shared with you my first person story on my own experience with my brother, and so I won't repeat that, but I will say that he's alive and well today, in part because of being able to benefit from telecommunicator CPR training and the dispatcher's understanding of that technique. I know time is short, and I'm interested in getting home. I imagine you all might be as well. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Mr. Garrett, thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Garrett this evening? Any questions? Okay, if you would be ready for any questions if they might come up. And committee, let's go right to some words from our department, maybe. Director Reiner, Colonel Holler, welcome. Thank you very much. I wasn't quite sure who all wanted to come forward, but everybody's welcome down front.
Mr. Chairman, good evening.
Good evening.
Kevin Haller with the Highway Patrol. So with this being an interim topic, and I have seen the amendment, and I do think it's a good amendment. Just a little bit of clarification. The way that these calls come in most often are via 911. And so we have what are referred to as PSAPs around the state. Public Safety Answering Points is what that acronym stands for. And what that means is when a 911 call is made, it goes into a PSAP. Now you have primary PSAPs, which are 911 centers. It turns out the Highway Patrol is not one. And then we have secondary PSAPs that are identified in the event a primary PSAP goes down. So those calls can be routed from that center over to another one. So things don't get lost, so to speak. So with that, I think the intent of this bill is sound. I believe that having the post commission being involved also has some merit. My only concern is that this bill is broad, and that is encompassing all dispatch centers. And all dispatch centers do not receive these types of calls. And in fact, in the last 2 years, at the Wyoming Highway Patrol, we have had one call of this nature. And whenever that happens, we transfer that immediately over to a PSAP, which is the Laramie County Combined Communication Center, or LQUAD, as they refer to it. So again, don't have any concerns with the intent of it. I think it's a good thing, but it's just not all equal for dispatch centers around the state. And with that, sir, I would stand for any questions.
Colonel Holler, do you have any suggestions for us? Do you have any suggested amendments that might fix a concern on that front if we've only received the one call in the past year or so?
Mr. Chairman, that is a good question. At first thought is to prioritize where these calls are going, and that is PSAPs or 911 centers. Having said that, I hesitate a little bit. As was just testified to, we do have some PSAPs in the state that have not enacted this CPR for their dispatchers. And it's my understanding it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't have the funds to do it. There are also other centers that have stood up the Tcpr, and they've had to let it go because they did not have the funds to maintain it. We ask our dispatchers to do a lot in these centers, and this is a great thing, but it does take additional time in an already depleted workforce environment, and it is an additional workload. Well worth it, but you got to have the funds to pull it off as well, and so that's the information that I'm just trying to balance.
Questions for Colonel Hall? Senator Pappas.
Well, not so much a direct question, an observation. If indeed not everyone is trained or can be trained to do it, but there's the ability to immediately transfer it to a center that can, isn't that just as, I mean, you would want to transfer that call directly to someone who has. So if every one of these centers that would be capable of taking a call, or not necessarily capable, but that would receive a call as this, if they were trained to transfer it to a location and there was some kind of a coordinating agreement with the locations, would that work?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Senator Pappas, yes, sir. And in essence, that is what has been occurring and is occurring today. And that is the way that these calls are being handled. Now, granted, you could argue that it is taking time to put that caller on hold and to transfer them over, that you could potentially lose the call. So I just want to be clear. I'm talking specifically about the Wyoming Highway Patrol Dispatch Center, which is here in Cheyenne, of course. So it has worked for us in the past, but there could be potentially other concerns throughout the state, depending on where that center is located and their capabilities.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that would be devastating if the transfer couldn't be made, or if someone was busy. There would have to be maybe a primary call and then maybe a secondary or tertiary ability. But yeah, it would have to be immediate. I mean, somebody's life is in danger. Yeah.
You bet.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Director Runner.
if I could just maybe go back to a question that was asked about determining, who needs to have the training. As we talked through this, and as I see this as the director, I think that's actually in the language, because if you look at specifically in the amendment, including for those dispatcher positions that the commission determines require the training. So I think, from a pure perspective of will we be training the patrol? I don't think we will, because I think the commission will probably say, hey, you're not a PSAP, so not required. And so I wasn't particularly worried in that regard that would affect us.
So Director, it strikes me that if we identify a center that we're going to need to pass along one of these phone calls, and they are not trained up, it seems to me like this bill would cover something like that, and we could resolve that difficulty, could we not?
Mr. Chairman, my sense would be that if there's a coordinated effort around the state to say, hey, here's the centers we're gonna focus on, understanding that resources are constrained and time is constrained, then that might be an approach. There's really my understanding is no coordinating entity that coordinates all the PSAPs, but the closest would probably be, the commission.
Go ahead, Colonel.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I agree wholeheartedly with the director, and not just because he's my boss. So there is actually an entity, and I don't know if the president will be on the phone tonight, but it's called APCO. And it's a conglomeration of dispatchers and other telecommunicators around the state. And there has been some correspondence. I believe he's out of the Cody area. Monty McLean, I think, is his name. And he has provided some information, I believe, to Representative Henderson as well. And those concerns primarily surround budgetary concerns. And so, as the director indicated, I do believe, and I have followed up with the executive director of Post, Mr. Chris Walsh, and his quick read of this, he did agree that they would be focusing on PSEPs.
So just to be perfectly honest, sometimes the bills we work on can be billboard in nature. I'm kind of sensing that to a certain degree that may be what we're looking at here. I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think it sets an expectation. I totally get that we may run into an agency out there that can't afford this training, but we will at least find that out, will we not, Colonel? I mean, if we're going to run into this, then we're going to mark it down, and we can bring it back to the Transportation Committee, right?
Mr. Chairman, absolutely. I do think that with the language in here, as was indicated, that it does allow the Post Commission to have those communications. And there is some latitude in there to work through some of those difficulties and maybe explore some grant opportunities or whatever else may be available out there. So yes.
Okay, thanks. Committee, anything else for YDOT? Okay, gentlemen, thank you. I'm going to go to public comment. Anybody like to come forward and please come forward. Bill, let's go. We've got somebody coming from the back. Either one, switch places, that's fine. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Winnie.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Winnie, Sublette County. A couple thoughts come to mind as I was listening to testimony. I can't say that I've ever had to do the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, but I was called upon one time to do the Heimlich maneuver, and I'm sure I speak to the choir here, but seconds count. And as I think about the switchover I just heard you all talking about, in the computer world and electronics today, they ought to be able to hit a button and be gone. The thought of putting on hold, Senator Pappas talked about it a little bit, and then the training of people. Fortunately, I was trained, and it worked. Subject to your questions, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Winnie. Appreciate it. Any questions, committee? Thank you for that, Bill. Appreciate it. Good evening.
Good evening.
Even though the committee knows, let us know who you are. Tony, good to see you.
Thank you, Chairman Landon and members of the committee. My name is Tony Decklever. I'm a registered nurse, but I'm actually here representing myself. I own an American Heart Training Center here in Cheyenne. There are 3 in our state. One is at the hospital here in Cheyenne, the other is in Gillette, and then mine. And my job is to teach instructors. I have about 120 instructors under my watch right now. As a matter of fact, I drove to Glen Rock to watch instructors teach a CPR class and drove back for this. So
Thank you for that. Appreciate you coming
Absolutely.
back.
as an RN, I have done CPR. And it is, even for those of us that are trained and it's expected in our profession, it is still an adrenaline creating event. It is absolutely frightening. And we know how to do it, and yet the American Heart Association shows, or their data shows that even as healthcare professionals, sometimes we don't do it very well. So much so that they've created a new system called RQI. It stands for Resuscitation Quality Improvement. The hospital in Casper, the hospital here, the VA here, are all under this system where their people have to review the skills of CPR every 3 months so that they are absolutely prepared in case someone goes down. But 70% of the people that go down outside of a hospital. That's what brings them in. And so we depend on bystander CPR to be started. And so that when the 911 shows up and the medical people show up, they can continue to do their job. There was a study done out of Seattle. In Seattle, if you're going to have a heart attack, the best place to go down is Seattle. And the reason for that is because 30% of their population is trained on how to do CPR. The national statistic for the number of people that are trained to do good CPR, not TV CPR, because they're totally different, but good CPR is about 5%. And I teach to thousands of people every year. And I can tell you that usually they are in my classes, not because they want to be there, but because they have to be there. They're there because the state requires it, their job requires it, or their license requires it. So there is a big chunk of people that are taking care of folks that have no training, and they are depending on 911. And when I teach classes and I say, the dispatcher will help you. If you don't know how to do this, the dispatcher will help you. And then to hear that sometimes the dispatchers don't know what to tell them is heartbreaking, because the sooner they get started, the better the outcome for the patient. So I am all for this. I'm in huge support of it. I hope that it goes through, and I know there's a few little amendments in it, but the training for Tcpr, which is an American Heart, they have a program, or they have suggestions on how the training should take place, is about 4 to 6 hours long. It's not too cumbersome. I've gone into places and taught a 6-hour class because it's an OSHA requirement. It would be done once a year, twice a year. CPR certification is a 2-year certification. So most people that take the class are certified for 2 years, but the employer can make that more often if they want to, like the hospitals do. So it's a good thing. I tell my students CPR is not only a professional skill, but it's a personal skill, because you never know what's going to happen. And just as a closing statement, I actually was speaking with a paramedic yesterday, and he said he said probably in the last year, he has come on scene where dispatch is telling someone to do CPR on a live person. And CPR is not needed on live people. So they need medical intervention. But as weird as it sounds, CPR is really, really, really only for dead people. And what we're trying to do is bring them back to life. So it's not needed for live people. It's a weird concept, but it's something that people don't quite understand. So
If this bill moves forward, Tony, can we take you up onto the Senate floor with us so that you can?
I
I'm
can
kidding.
bring a mannequin.
Kidding only
No.
slightly.
I mean, I would challenge the
Yeah.
5 of you. How many of you could do CPR if someone dropped right now?
Mr. Chairman?
I could do it, but I don't know if he'd bring him back to life.
We better go to Senator
I'm
Anderson
teasing.
first.
Thank
Senator Anderson's had his hand up, so.
Okay.
Senator Anderson,
He's good to
then-
go.
Then I'll come back to Senator Pappas.
I just need to make sure I got that right. 30% of the people in Seattle are trained?
The
30%, is that what you said?
Chairman Landon, Senator Henderson, that is the American Heart Association's kind of determination data. that, and they could get that data because of the number of cards and the number of instructors and the number of books. So they can look at all of that and they can see how many people in the area. So their numbers, that's why all the studies are done up in Seattle, because so many people are trained in CPR.
And is that just because, follow up, is that just because they've been training on those people for a long time? Or we've all been training on people for a long time, haven't we?
Chairman
Go ahead,
Landon,
Tony.
Senator Anderson, unless it's required by an employer or a license or a job or a school, the chances of someone being trained in CPR are actually quite low. They just don't, it just isn't, because they can call 911. I mean, I don't need to be trained because I'll just call 911 and they'll come and they'll do it. So it depends on the community and how they push things out and they make it a big deal. It's unfortunate that American Heart doesn't have a huge presence in the state of Wyoming as far as other types of programs and different things, but we try, especially in our rural state, to get as many people trained as possible.
Follow up, Mr.
Go
Chairman.
ahead, Senator Anderson.
In the MSHA domain,
Mhm.
it's required
Mhm.
every year to be trained on CPR.
Mhm.
So I'm surprised more people aren't trained in Wyoming. Thank you.
Senator Pappas,
That's okay.
sure? I'm
The
sorry,
only,
I
the only
missed you.
comment I was going to make is I think the Senate Transportation Committee, I just signed up for Tony's class.
There you go.
Yeah. I,
And a refresher every year about this time.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure we can save Pappas.
Tony, thank you. So if this bill were to move forward, would you be willing to work with, I see Jan back here, I see, obviously, Richard is here. You know, if this needs a little tweaking along the way, would you be willing to look at that with us? And kind of keep us up to speed?
Absolutely, Chairman.
Okay, thank you.
I'm more than happy to.
Appreciate it.
You bet.
If you're here, we may ask you a question later.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good evening, Jan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jan Cartwright. I'm representing the Wyoming Public Health Association tonight. I really want to thank this committee for considering this important public safety measure. I've advocated for cardiovascular disease prevention and treatment for most of the past 2 decades. In that time, there have been significant improvements in emergency care for heart attacks, including the distribution of automated external defibrillators, or AEDs, across the state, and a recognition of the value of CPR training, most importantly for telecommunicators. So I'm going to be talking with you tonight, and if I could have had my stopwatch going at the same time as I read my notes, I would have done it. There's reality and there's theory. Reality is that people suffering a heart attack start to have less good outcomes at 5 minutes. So while I'm sitting here talking to you for about 3 minutes, there's a lot that goes on in a dispatch center. And I'm not trying to counter what the gentleman said, but the bottom line is the more people that are trained, the better outcomes for people. So, oops, I lost my notes. So when passed, this legislation will provide training to dispatchers who in turn will provide support to families and bystanders to save lives. So thank you.
Questions for Jan? All right, thank you very much.
It
Appreciate
was probably less than 3 minutes.
Yeah, appreciate it. Further public comment on this bill? Any further public comment? Do we have anyone, Donna, online who might be raising their virtual hand? Because then we would know if they wanted to testify on this bill.
You are absolutely correct, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we do have 3 participants online, but no one with their hand up right now.
Okay. Once again, anybody further on this? Okay, let's close public testimony. Committee, what's your pleasure on this bill?
Move the bill.
Senator Anderson moved and Senator Pappas seconded. Discussion. Okay, let's work this bill, and I do think, committee, that we may want to keep an eye on an opportunity to tweak along the way. I'm looking at our department and at Mr. Garrett in the back as we move this along. If it does go, let's just be ready and able to tweak something if we need to. Does that make sense? We do have a proposed amendment in front of us. Would somebody have an interest in moving that?
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that amendment.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. The proposed amendment, Kim, is what we're looking at here. Any discussion on that? Ready for the question? All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye. Any opposed? No, that amendment has passed, so we're back on the bill. Anything further on the bill, committee?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Anderson.
is the calculation correct? Did I hear that they might not do all the dispatchers? What was the calculation here? It was 47 dispatchers, I think, for $500 apiece. Yeah, 47 dispatchers. So did I hear that they maybe weren't gonna do all the 47 dispatchers?
Director Reiner, did we hear that correctly? Or Colonel Holler? I don't mean to, everybody's welcome.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman,
Like the
you know,
Catholic
just
Church, everybody's
after,
welcome down front and nobody sits down front.
so, Mr. Chairman, not to put words in the colonel's mouth, but really what our understanding is that there are some fiscal restraints in some PSAPs across the state that would preclude the ability to train. And then the additional, go ahead.
Colonel, tell me about 47 dispatchers, and that belongs to us in the Wyoming Highway Department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that was on a fiscal note, I believe. And so that includes all of our dispatchers and our Highway Patrol Dispatch Center that is 24/7. And so that was a projection of what that would cost for the training. There are some other expenses. There was what used to be the flip cards to go through and read to the party to help them walk them through the CPR. Those are somewhat dated, and now you get into software and things like that. And as the director indicated, it does get into budgets.
So potentially, gentlemen, we could stand something like this up, get it started, see where that's gonna maybe take us a little bit. Just relying on what's in the bill currently, and then take it into the interim and look at it as we go, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Knowing that, committee, that we can take care of our 47 dispatchers or whatever that number would be in a couple of months, beginning this training, that would take care of YDOT. And then we can move on from there. Senator McEwen.
Mr. Chairman, I guess what I'm hearing is, and I just want to ask the question, the 23.5's probably not a realistic number. Is that correct, sir? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Colonel?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Senator McEwen, that is an accurate statement. The more that I learned about this and getting into some of the software, there are additional costs. I could not give you a hard figure tonight, though.
Thank you, Colonel. Okay, appreciate it. Any other questions of YDOT, gentlemen? Okay, are you ready for question on the bill? Question. Okay. Kim, would you please take roll on Senate File 14?
Senate File 14 amended. Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Furphy. Senator McEwen.
Aye.
Senator Pappas.
Aye.
Chairman Landon.
Aye,
5 ayes do pass.
thank you. You know, Senator McEwen, this bill just has you written all over it for floor manager.
I think so. I think you're right.
You know,
Boy, he would be good with that one.
well, I saw him starting to raise his hand.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that was, all right. Okay, we need to look at the back of the room. We've got a senator sitting back there. Senate File 22, Utility Trailers Permanent Registration. Senator Cost, come on forward and help us know what Senate File 22 is up to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's an honor to be here with you, even at this late night. I'll see if I can cut this as short as possible so you don't have to stay too late. there's only about 16 pages to the bill, so it shouldn't take too long, so.
You know, it is longer than I remember, but go ahead.
What we have here is Senate File 22, utility trailers, permanent registration. After talking to some of the farmers and different ones around, I found that a lot of people that have more than one trailer have a tendency to never know which one's up for licensing or whatever. And so they were saying, couldn't we do something like they do in the state just north of us and come up with some permanent license plates? And so I figured, well, we'll start easy. And then if somebody wants to go from there, that's fine. So I started with our lightest division, which is 6,000 pounds or less. And basically what we've done here is an act relating to motor vehicles providing for the permanent registration of utility trailers as specified, providing a fee exemption for permanently registered utility trailers and providing for an effective date. It starts out with the annual renewal, delivery of license plates and stickers. And if you look on page 2, the owner of a utility trailer is defined in Wyoming Statute 31-101A 23C, that is not less than 11 years old and is subject to registration fees under Wyoming Statute 31-201, may permanently register the utility trailer upon payment of a permanent registration administration and decal fee in the amount of $87.50, and the applicable title, registration, and license fees under the Title 31, Chapter 2, Articles 1 and 2, and Chapter 3 of the Wyoming statutes, if the utility trailer has not previously been titled, registered, and had a license plate issued for a utility trailer that has previously been titled, registered, and issued a license and a license plate that is currently registered and subject to annual renewal, the owner may continue to use the plate issued at the time of the owner's most recently registered the utility trailer. An owner may, instead of paying the applicable fees under this paragraph, and be issued a new or specialty plate for permanent registration under this subsection. And on page 3 at the top,
So Senator Cost?
Yes.
Maybe you could just take those paragraphs and tell us what's in them.
I could do that if
Yeah,
you'd like.
There you go.
We're going to take 5 times the applicable fee, and that's going to be the cost for the permanent license along with the $87.50 fee.
Okay.
The owner of the utility trailer then is permanently registered, and they put a sticker on and it's taken care of. I do have a suggestion for an amendment after talking a little bit more with some people, and that amendment would be that anybody that purchases a trailer that's already more than 10 years of age must license it 5 years continually before they're able to be eligible for the permanent license. In other words, we want to make sure that they're licensing it and have been on an ongoing time before they license it. I think that'd be a fair way to appropriate. It'll offset the cost a little bit, and then it allows them to, after that 5-year period, to get a permanent license. So that would be it. That's the whole thing. I have some responses from people, but Director Reiner is here, and he'll be able to respond to those instead of me saying what some of his staff had said. So,
Okay. Well, thank you, Senator Cost. Questions? Senator Pat?
Mr. Chairman, as I understand it, then when you get this permanent license, it's a one-time thing,
it's a one-time thing.
and you never, ever have to check in again with anybody?
As long as you're the owner of the trailer, if you transfer it to somebody else.
Pretty much like our antique license plates, right? We're gonna end up knowing, we're not gonna know how many are out there after a while, right?
After a while, that is possible, yes.
Okay.
Further questions of the sponsor?
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, it's late and I'm having a hard time with this line 2 on page 2. Is not less than 11 years old. What does that
In other
mean?
words, it must be 11 years or older. 11, 12, 13, 14 years old.
So the best way to say that is not less than 11 years old? Does that make sense to anybody else?
Okay. Senator Anderson, it is late.
It is late.
So,
Not less than in mathematics would be below the number that's been stated. It's 11. So it cannot be less than 11 years old to qualify for the permanent license plate.
Oh,
Senator Cost,
Okay.
do we know how old these trailers are in our backyard?
On there, there's a registration and it's on the registrations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess.
And it should
is.
be on the title as well, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, further questions? Okay, so we want to hear from the department on this.
He won't have a
Because
lot to
we're
say.
kind of wondering if they're willing to do this. So,
Gladly. I'll step back and allow that.
Department of Transportation, Mr. Rossetti, I see you in there tonight. Thanks for staying up late with us. Because we're talking trailers, by golly. Director, welcome back to the
You bet.
front.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, members of the
Take
committee.
it away.
Yep. In terms of this bill, we certainly thank the bringer of this bill for chatting with us as he started on that process. And just a couple comments, and I'll probably turn it over to Mr. Rossetti here. First is, if it's the will of this body, there's absolutely no reason that this thing cannot go forward. A couple things as we work through it. One was, you work through the fiscal note because we certainly look at revenue. It was very difficult to calculate, the fiscal note. And in the short run, it's actually beneficial to us. But the sense is, over time, revenue will taper off. But it's very difficult to calculate because there's so many variables in the not less than 11 and when it gets transferred and et cetera, et cetera. So you see the fiscal note and that's what it is. I think the other, items to remember is that the counties are actually where this process takes place.
Yeah.
And so they really own the registration process and at that level. And I think we do have a couple thoughts for us, just perhaps to enhance the bill. And if the bringer is contemplating an amendment, then I think we'd probably have a couple that we would suggest. But certainly, many states around us do this. These trailers are the smallest of the small, so the bringer's correct. This starts at a place, and it's gross vehicle weight 6,000 pounds. So it's a pretty small trailer. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stay here, and I think maybe what I'd ask Mr. Rossetti to do is just to sort of talk through a couple items of consideration as we consider this piece of legislation.
Mr. Rossetti, take it away. Thanks for being here.
Mr. Chairman, Taylor Rossetti, Support Services at YDOT. And as the director mentioned, the county treasurers are typically going to be your point of contact when you register vehicles. And certainly from a functional and process standpoint, I don't want to speak for them. I'll try to speak for what we think we could handle administratively. We'd have to work with them to ensure that this is something that can actually be implemented. As the bringer of the bill, the good senator mentioned, this is the smallest class of trailer that we have defined. However, there is a caveat to that in that that's a 6,000 gross vehicle weight rating for trailers. And when we license vehicles, we use unladen weight. So this actually could potentially impact two different classes of trailers as far as on the registration side. Again, that's not a deal breaker, but there's the small trailers that are under 1,000 pounds that use the little plate, almost like a motorcycle size plate, as well as it would tip over into the smallest class that would use the big full size plate. So it's two different types of trailers really from a registration standpoint. I think that one of the things that we could do probably to help mitigate that is there on the top of page 2, in the area where we're talking about being able to do this is potentially just asking for the owner to make application, which then means we could have them certify to the age of the trailer in case there is a question, and they could also certify that it's 6,000 pound gross or less. And then that way, I think that might mitigate some of those questions or concerns there in that
Mr.
regard.
Rossetti, you're talking about going in on page 2, line 4, instead of saying may permanently register, you're saying that maybe we make that a request? Is that Did I read you right?
I think really, Mr. Chairman, what I'm saying is that can register, but, or maybe what you put in there is something along the lines of make application to register. It would allow you to request maybe a certification again from the owner that it meets the two criteria, which I think would alleviate maybe some of the concerns that would be out there. Moving on then, in page 2, the permanent decal, I think that makes sense to us and is pretty straightforward. We just want to make sure that we understand that there's two different things that could occur here. You could use your current plate and we'd give you a permanent decal, or the bill possibly reads that it's also allowing us to create a new permanent plate. I think we're open to either. We would just want to make sure we're clear as we move forward. I think one of the good options here is to be very clear that we could make a permanent plate. I think what you could do then is make a very simple plate that would be very noticeable and distinguishable from the regular license plate. The reason I make that suggestion is only because we also have a statute that requires us to modify our plates every 8 years. So you could, within a very short period of time, you could have multiple different types of plates on these vehicles. Just something that I think I'd like the committee to consider.
So Senator Pappas, go ahead.
So again, the analogy to the Pioneer plates, to the antique car plates, they're only purchased once, right? And that's that same plate, simple plate that's never changed. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Pappas, correct. And I think the initial response would be is almost reverse the design. Instead of black on or white on black, almost go black on white. Just very simplistic, and it'd be very easy to maintain. You don't have to worry about fading over time. That would, I think, probably be my initial suggestion.
As you look at that language on line 7 through 9, Mr. Rossetti, any thoughts about how you might change that? Permanent registration administration and plate? Is that what you're suggesting instead of decal fee?
No,
And a
Mr.
plate
Chairman,
fee?
I apologize if I confused you. I think that the decal as it is there on 7 through 9 is okay. I think if you look down lower on page 2 there, you do get into some language there on lines 20 through 22 that talks about an owner may instead pay the applicable fees under the paragraph and be issued a new or specialty plate or permanent registration under subsection. I believe I could read that to allow me to create that permanent plate. I just want to make sure that that is your guys' intent and that we do have that authority. So
I'm seeing a head shake in the back there saying that was our intent, so there you go. Please continue, Mr. Rossetti.
sure, thanks,
Oh,
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry, Senator McEwen has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is out of left field. Why do we have a statute in the state of Wyoming to replace plates every 8 years? I'm playing this through my mind. Is it an economic driver? Highway patrolman get sick of looking at the same plates after 8 years?
I think the
Thank you, Mr.
question is,
Chairman.
what was the legislature back then thinking when they did that, Mr. Rossetti?
Mr. Chairman, Senator McEwen, I would not want to besmirch any folks that came before you, but there are a couple of things that do play into the rationale. Generally speaking, they do like to do, by standard, replace these at least every 12 years. That's generally the national standard. The 8 years, though, probably is more related to the way the plates are manufactured. A lot of the vinyl that is used on top of the aluminum is generally warranted for about 5 years, but we notice that it does perform well enough to get 8 years worth of use out of them. And that really speaks to the reflectivity and the way that light can bounce off of it so that you can read it. So there is a durability question there, which is, I think, why that remains 8 years.
Okay, please continue, Mr. Rossetti. You had more comments on the bill and.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, moving on through, the next question, I'm going to bounce on from page 2 over to page 4 and make my proposed suggestion. I believe that the senator mentioned that they would like maybe individuals to have a vehicle for at least 5 years before being able to make application for the permanent plate. That's certainly a path we could take. But as you read the section there on page 2, lines 11 through 15, that does describe very well the process under which.
Did you say page 2?
Yep, page 2, page 2. I'll bounce over to page 4. I'm sorry, Senator Anderson. So lines 11 through 15 there on page 2 does describe the process, I think, very well. I think that's extremely well written for the very first time. Where that seems to cause a little bit of confusion then is if you flip over there to page 4, and this section is talking about the transfer of that plate. So I sell that vehicle or even transfer it to somebody within my family. And if you look there on line 7, it references that person would then be able to go and register it under 31.2.201, which is the traditional registration. One suggestion that we could do there is put or 31.2.206 and then reference this section N. Or if the senator wants to move forward with his suggestion to require the ownership for 5 years prior to this, I think we're probably okay. We just have to work with him to get that amendment in place. But there's 2 ways I think you could attack
So,
that.
Mr. Rossetti, if we use that second reference to 31.2.206, what does that do for that sentence?
That would allow
Means
you
I'm-
as the new owner to either register it in the regular fashion if you choose not to do the permanent, or you would immediately be able to go into the permanent. So that would really be up to the preference of the bringer of the bill.
But as the new owner of a trailer, Mr. Rossetti, I would come in, the treasurer at the county would, under 31.2.206, say, you need to register this trailer, you're the brand new owner.
Yep,
And
I would
could
like to
either do
make
it for that year,
application.
Or I could do it permanently.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, that would be correct.
I think I like it that way, but we'll talk about that. Go ahead.
But this is 31.2.206. So it would be this section.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Pappas, yes. So if you go to 201, again, it gets you into just the normal registration process, which would be the annual. But if you put or, you would have the option, which would be the same option that you have starting day one in order to go down this path. You as the owner then have either option if you were to purchase an 11-year-old trailer.
I guess what I'm getting at, it should be probably, or this, should be this section or 31.2.201.
Mr. Chairman.
You don't want to reference this section again.
I get it. Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Pappas, that would absolutely work in my mind.
Director Reiner.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to echo what he was saying. Really, the way it's written now is if you bought a trailer that was permanently registered, the way it's written now, you'd have to go register it normally and not be able to put a permanent plate on it. And this probably was not the intent.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rossetti, what else?
Mr. Chairman, the only last thing I would like to bring to the attention is, again, section P here, which starts on page 3, line 20 through page 4, line 7. That is speaking of the transfer, and you can transfer by selling or you can transfer within the family, or you can even transfer a plate onto something that you also then purchase. So you could have an 15-year-old trailer, buy an 11-year-old trailer, get rid of the 15-year-old trailer, and within a certain time frame transfer that plate potentially. The caveat to that is that you get credit for the fees and you only have to pay the differential registration. I don't know what you would do in this case if both were eligible for permanent registration. So the transfer provision, I think, would need to be laid out a little bit. Lots of different ways you could go there. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd stand for any other questions you may have.
Committee, I hope you stayed up on that one on paragraph P a little bit better than I did. But yeah, we may have to work that over a little bit, Mr. Rossetti. Any other questions for Mr. Rossetti or the director? Okay. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. We'll reserve the right to ask questions as we go. Let's go to public comment. Do we have anybody here this evening that wants to comment on Senate File 22, utility trailers permanent registration? Please come forward. Manny, good evening. Who's that? Good evening.
Am I on? Mr. Chairman, I'm Lanny Applegate. I'm just speaking as a private individual. Although, I understand and the perception of this bill and probably a good one in the long run, but I got a couple questions about it. And that is, we all know there's a lot of homemade trailers out here, and an individual could use the same number on several trailers as they're identifying them. So they could be swapped from trailer to trailer to trailer, these plates. The other question I have is, what happens if you have a trailer that qualifies for a plate and a few years down the road, that trailer gets stolen and you have to replace that? You lose the plate and all, so you have to start all over again, and that for another 10 years with another trailer?
Kind of feels like it to me, Mr. Applegate, but, you know.
Depending on the age of the trailer.
So,
If the trailer was 11 years, so we're gonna say.
yeah,
Okay. I thought I had my answer, and I probably did, but I had to ask it.
yeah.
So, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Applegate. Really appreciate you being here. Yeah, there's always the opportunity, I think, committee, for anybody to do just about anything with their licenses. And, you know, if you get pulled over, they may discover that that's the wrong trailer. Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I sure didn't know you could transfer those plates from vehicle to vehicle without going through the
Yeah, I
county.
bet you never thought of that. Yeah, no.
Some good
serious.
information there.
Further public comment. I see we got the county here. But does anybody else want to comment on this Senate File 22? Any public comment from inside the room? Okay, do we have anybody, ladies on Zoom tonight, who want to comment on 22?
Mr. Chairman, there still isn't anyone with their hand up.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to close public comment then. Committee, what's your pleasure on this bill?
Move it.
Senator Anderson moved it.
Second.
And seconded by Senator Pappas. Discussion. Let's work this bill. And committee, there were a couple of suggestions, none that I remember on page 1. I think we're good to go there. When we get over to page 2, there was a recommendation made to us on paragraph N, line 4. And it could potentially read, I believe, registration fees under WS 312201 may make application to register the utility trailer upon payment of. I believe that's what the suggestion was, and I'm looking for Mr. Rossetti's.
I think you need to put the word permanently in there.
Do we still need, still need permanently? Application to permanently register, yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I believe I would keep the word permanently in there.
Okay, thank you.
Permanently make application.
Okay, so after the word may, we would insert the words make application to permanently register the utility trailer upon payment of. Does that make sense, committee? Everybody know what we're looking at there? I guess I'd propose that amendment.
Second.
Are you ready to vote on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no? Okay, that passes. So Kim, that on line
On,
4?
on that page, Mr. Chairman, I think I sensed that the body wanted a little younger utility trailers. I think they were liking 3 to 4 years instead of 11.
So your suggested amendment would be somewhere around maybe 5 years, is what I'm hearing you say, huh? Maybe a
I
5-year-old
think
trailer?
that's what I heard the body saying, yeah. Is there a
I'm
second?
kind of looking for a second.
Okay.
All right, I didn't get a second, so
Yeah, yeah.
maybe we can visit that
They're,
up on the floor
they're a
later.
little sleepy tonight, yeah.
So All
Just a
right,
little
so,
sleepy.
so far, it's staying at 11, Senator Anderson. So, okay, so we had a suggestion from the sponsor of the bill over on page 3, and this would come underneath paragraph O. That, no, I think Mr. Rossetti, you cleaned that up by suggesting that we just reference on page 4, line 7, that the utility trailer under this section or 312201, and that gives us that takes care, Senator Cost, doesn't that take care of your suggestion regarding transfer of the trailer?
Mr. Chairman, it does, and actually it keeps it simpler for the clerks as well, because now they don't have to try to figure out that 5 years after they have purchased it before they can get a permanent license. So that definitely helps both sides of that.
Okay.
And one other thing, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind,
Sure.
on P, where they were trying to make something and we were having a hard time coming up with something, the department said they would write something and I'll bring it to you so that we could bring that part as either second reading or first reading. We'd have to get it through first, but first reading.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Senator.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, back
Okay,
to your amendment. I
So
second it.
Senator Pappas seconded the amendment, so let's reiterate, we're on line 6, actually, on page 4, under WS 312101, and register the utility trailer under this section or WS 312201. Everybody follow? So after the word under, we're going to include this section or WS 312201. Kim, does that make sense? Okay. Discussion. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That amendment passes. Do we have anything further on the bill?
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Pappas.
I don't. We mentioned at the bottom of page 2, something about, the specialty plates there. And you were questioning, and I think the department said that they're okay with that language and that they could do a specialty plate without changing that language. Is that correct? Or do we need to tweak that?
Mr. Rossetti, thank you for coming forward again. We're giving you a workout here, but so what about that language at the bottom of page 2? Are we okay?
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm clear by the direction this conversation has gone, that is your guys' will. That's how I will deploy.
Okay.
And Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, the
Senator Pappas.
second question, there was some concern I heard out there that the weight was a gross weight. And is that an issue that we have to deal with? Should be unladen weight. And what would be
Rossetti?
easier for the department?
And or the treasurers.
Mr. Chairman, it would functionally change the bill. So the difference here is the definition for a utility trailer is a gross weight of 6,000 pounds or less. When you go to register, we register off an unladen weight. So there's 2 categories of trailer that would fall into this. I believe that the addition of the application in that initial section would allow for the proper certification to occur so that the applicant would certify it meets the definition of utility trailer. And I think that would resolve the concerns that I would have.
Okay. Thank you for double checking that, Senator. Committee, I think that covers any concerns or thoughts I had on the bill. Anything else that somebody picked up on? We are going to have, on both of these bills so far tonight, we're going to have a little bit of a financial impact. So we may have to quickly get this to appropriations. But that's for tomorrow morning we can decide. But okay.
There's no appropriation.
Kim, would you take roll on Senate File 22? Please.
Senate File 22, Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Furphy.
Aye.
Senator McEwen.
Aye.
Senator Pappas.
Aye.
Chairman Landon.
Aye.
5 ayes do pass amended.
Okay. Senator Cost, we're right behind you up there if a fight breaks out. And we'll look forward. There's an administrative impact, and I'll check on that, Senator Costa. I don't know if we need to take it to the other committee or not, but
There's no appropriation. Still coming out high.
just for the record, Senator Cost, I did talk with some county folks last night, and they like this bill. And I have to admit that there were several times when I paid that $5 fee. By the time I drive down there and bother them, and one time I had to get it inspected by one of our finest, and for $5. So it's good little bill. Thank you. Senator Cost, we'll see you upstairs tomorrow with that bill.
We're gonna let him present.
You bet.
Is he gonna present?
Yep. You're okay to present that, Senator Cost, right? You're okay to present this, right? You're presenting on the floor, right? Yeah,
Way to pass it along.
yeah. Okay, committee, we're gonna keep moving along. It's getting late. So Senate File 17, automated transport of cargo or goods, and Senator Pappas did some work on our behalf and on behalf of this bill of his. So Senator Pappas, take it away.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to thank everyone that helped put this together. It was a team effort with the industry partners, FedEx, and with YDOT, Josh with the patrol, and Kelly over there, and Sheila back in the back. It was a great effort, and we had the Justin's not here tonight, but we had agreement with all partners, with WAM, with there were a couple of mayors from cities as well. And so what I bring to you tonight is the work of all of the folks. I know we're not going to discuss the bill. We have already done that. All we're going to do is discuss the amendment. So we should probably move the amendment so I can discuss it, if that was okay. But
You can certainly
Or do you want
make
me
that
to-
motion,
do you want me to
Senator.
discuss it
If
and
you
then
wanna-
move it?
If you have a proposed amendment, maybe you could make that motion.
Okay, I moved the proposed amendment that's before you.
Okay. Seconded by Senator McEwen. So walk us through the amendment, Senator,
Okay.
and then we'll know what we're adding to the bill.
If you recall, the big issue was, if you turn to page 8, top of page 8, actually the title is on page 7, local regulation. The biggest issue was the local authority shall not regulate the operation of personal delivery devices on a street, highway, or pedestrian area in the manner inconsistent with this article. Okay, we had a little heartburn, and frankly, I had some heartburn as well, taking all of that authority away from the local folks. But the intent was in that so that we had some consistency across the state. We didn't want one utility to say, or one community, municipality say they would just prohibit it, and vice versa. Other communities doing other things. So here is the language that we landed on. I'll skip, first of all, I'll just skip down to page 6, or line 16 of your amendment. 14 actually deletes the old language on lines 2 through 4. I haven't got rid of the entire paragraph. If you look at the last part of the paragraph, we're leaving the ability for law enforcement, peace officers to enforce the laws of the state. We still want that. So that's staying in there. But we are deleting lines 2 through 4, and we're replacing it with the following language. May reasonably regulate the operation of personal delivery devices in accordance with any rule promulgated by the Department of Transportation for the purpose of assuring the safety of the persons using a street, highway, or pedestrian area, but shall not permit their use. So anyhow, if you recall, we decided we were going to give rulemaking authority to YDOT to promulgate rules that would assist us in regulating these personal delivery devices. But as the industry wanted, they wanted to make sure that communities could not just prohibit their use. So if you'll see in page one, at the beginning of the amendment, page 1, we're deleting, or line 1 through 3, we're deleting the words preempting inconsistent regulations, and now we're just saying limiting, because we're not preempting anything anymore. And by the way, I ran this by LSO. You know, they don't like to change the bill title, but they were good with this change since we're not preempting anything anymore. And then we're also including the ability to provide rulemaking. You'll see that on line 5 and 6. On the next change there, page 4, line 11, was actually a change that was brought to me by our industry partner, FedEx, and that has to do with hazardous materials. They're not able to transport hazardous materials regulated under the Federal Hazardous Material Transport Act, and it says there unless placarded, and that's wrong. It should state, as what we're changing it to, that are required to be placarded. In other words, only hazardous materials that require a placard are not able to be delivered by these things. There are certain hazardous materials that are mildly hazardous, but they're still considered hazardous, that don't require placards. Those are still okay.
Okay.
I don't know what those things are, but they're able to deliver them right now and in all of their vans as it is now without placards. So
What else in the amendment?
so then we created a new section 3 and section 4. Section 3 allows the department to promulgate rules necessary to implement this act. And then section 4 is a change to the effective date. You see that we're splitting it up. The effective date for rulemaking is immediately, and the effective date of the act is September 1. So that's the amendment. I think everybody agrees on it. I don't know if anybody wants to come up and talk. It's kind of late tonight, but I don't know of anyone that disagrees.
Well, Senator, thank you. Committee, any questions of the senator and the work that was done on this amendment? Any clarifications that are needed? Anybody want to weigh in? Please come forward.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Bob McLaurin with WHAM. Just wanted to let you know we really appreciate the amendment and support the bill in its current form, and appreciate the senator working with us and industry to help us deal with this in big crowds and at peak times. Thank you very much.
Bob, thank you. And I will say, let's keep an eye as we go.
Okay.
And there's always opportunity for us to react or modify and we'll sure be listening to you and your folks, as this goes along. So.
Well, we like it, sir. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
appreciate it, Bob. Thank you. Thanks for that. Anybody else want to comment? We're good? Thumbs up in the back?
I don't.
Okay, one more. Why not? Please come forward. Appreciate you. Yeah, no problem. Appreciate the extra time that was spent on this, everyone.
Mr. Chairman, Committee, Josh Walther, Lieutenant Colonel for the Wyoming Highway Patrol. Yeah, I appreciate you, Senator Pappas, addressing our concerns. I think we have a good course of action here. I think you've addressed all the concerns we had either in the bill or given us an avenue to address them through rules and regulations. So if rulemaking authority is the best way to move forward, this will support it and we'll make it happen.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel, thanks in advance for, and I would also remind, as this bill moves forward, I hope it does, and continues on over to the other side, to the dark side, keep an eye on it and, make sure they take good care of it, okay? All right. Thank you
Mr.
very
Chairman.
much, Josh. Okay, anything else? Any further public comment on this bill? Do we have anybody online with a virtual hand up? Okay, we'll close public testimony again, or any testimony, and are you ready to take roll on this bill?
No, we gotta pass the amendment.
Oh, we gotta
ready
pass,
to
we
pass the
gotta pass it. Moved and seconded, all in favor of this amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Okay, now the amendment. So as amended, take roll, Kim, on Senate File 17, please.
Senate File 17, Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Furphy,
Aye.
Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Senator Pappas,
Aye.
Chairman Landon.
Two senators.
Aye.
5 ayes do pass amended.
Guess who will take this one?
I think Senator Pappas is gonna take that one, by golly. So, good evening and welcome to Chairman Baldwin in the back, Senator Schuler. If you'd like to come forward, we'd love to hear about Senate File 52, special license plates, organ donations. And Senator Baldwin, since you're on this bill, you can come forward too. Come on down front. Great to see you. It's been a while since we've seen you guys. Yeah, there you go. So we've spent some quality time today together, but this is better right here. Senator Schuler, tell us about Senate File 52, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee, and I'm happy to have Chairman Baldwin here with me. I would like to present Senate File 52, special license plates, organ donations tonight, and ask for your consideration for it. One of the constituents in my county, and also he has a very strong connection to Senator Baldwin here, had asked if we would look into the idea of a special Donate Life license plate. And his son was given a new life with a new heart a couple of years ago, and they were just so overjoyed and happy to have a second chance at life that they wanted to do something to bring a little bit more awareness to organ donations. And Chairman, if you would like to just give a little history of this young man, he knows him better than I do, actually.
I call him that sometimes
So I'm
too,
sorry.
Senator. I catch
Senator.
myself. Senator.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get called a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, this was brought to us by a very good friend of mine, a very good man. Eric Quinney would be his name. He lives down in Bridger Valley in Evanston. His son, at 7 days old, had his first open heart surgery. He had his second open heart surgery when he was 2 months old. He had his third open heart surgery when he was 2.5 years old. In about 2019, he started to develop liver disease and was having some failure. And in October 2019, he was declared a candidate for heart transplant. He came up as a 1A in 2020 in January. And in March 2020, he did receive a new heart. Now, he's had a lot of complications since then, but he's doing well. And I would be remiss not to say, this is the most amazing young man. And I don't know if he's available online. He had to go to a drama practice tonight. While we were having drama on the floor, he went to drama practice. Hopefully he's made it out now and we'll be online. We'll be able to meet Bryson.
Senator Baldwin, what's his age now, in case we don't get to see him online?
He was born in 2006.
Okay,
So
gotcha. All right.
my math is bad at this time of night, but
Oh, okay. Please continue.
okay. Well, I bring it to you, and his father brought this to me, and the fact they had that heart transplant done in Utah, just down the road from where he lives. And that state to the west of us does have a program where they do have these license plates. It's very similar to what the good Senator Schuler is going to present to you. Eric brought this to me and said, can we do something like that in Wyoming? And I said, we're kind of new to license plate deals. We haven't done a lot of them, or maybe we have, for those that have been in the Senate for a while. But I said, sure, I think we can present that and see if we can get that done here in Wyoming.
With that, I would turn it back to.
Well, thanks for your comments, Senator Baldwin. Appreciate you being here. And Senator Schuler, you want to walk us through the bill?
Sure, you
Okay,
bet.
thank you.
Before I do, I'd just like to give you just a little bit more background on just the idea of what the plate would look like. And I should have run some copies off, but it'll just be a little thing that says Donate Life Wyoming. And actually, if you end up deciding to do that, you'll have a little gray thing on your driver's license. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that yet, but it's pretty cool. So anyway, the license plate would be subject to the same registration requirements as all other forms, and it would be available at the county treasurer's offices. There'd be space there to register as an anatomical gift donor and an option to donate $1 or more if you wanted to, strictly optional, to promote awareness and education of organ donation. And then these monies would be forwarded to the county and then to the state into a separate account for the Department of Health to promote public awareness of organ donation. They would have to have 1,000 sets of plates issued before December 31st, 2033, or these plates would be eliminated for production. And just a few more little facts real quick, because I know it's a long night. Facts that I think are kind of important about organ donation. 17 people die every day waiting for organ transplant. There's about 106,000 people on the national transplant waiting list. And every time a donor donates, they can save 8 lives. 2,000 about approximately are waiting for the gift of life in our region. And there's something I found out in doing the research, there's no age limit. I always thought there was an age limit, but 1 out of every 3 donors are over
That's
the age
good
of
news
50.
right there for
So
somebody
there's
like
hope.
me.
There's hope for all of us. And they've even had some donors who've had cancer, diabetes, hepatitis, and they can still donate. And actually, I found out that the oldest one, at least to my knowledge, is an 87-year-old gentleman from Jeffrey City that donated here just recently. So I think the biggest thing is many times the discussion about organ donation just doesn't happen until the teenager goes in to get his driver's license. And that's usually not always the time that mom and dad want to have that discussion about organ donation. So I looked into all the different specialty plates, and the interesting thing about a lot of them is that they do have kind of a higher purpose, like the wildlife specialty plates. They donate $150 to the Conservation Fund. The tribal plates donate to tribal scholarships. UW donates $130 to scholarships and so on. And I realize we have specialty plates for firemen and EMTs and veterans and that sort of thing. And actually, I think it's really cool when they go down the road and you see somebody's a Purple Heart person or they're a veteran or whatever else. So this is really just another way to encourage folks to sign up as donors and to donate to awareness of that education if they so wish. So anyway, the bill, are you ready for that?
Absolutely.
All right.
Please go.
It's pretty simple. The first page, I don't think there's anything on there that I think we'd have any issue with. It's on the second page, and we did find just recently that we might have an issue on page 2. And I don't know, is this a good time to let you know about the amendment, or do you want me to say that?
Absolutely. No.
Okay, I think Mr. Rossetti from YDOT is going to come up and present the amendment. Is that okay? Is
Sure.
that legal?
Mr. Rossetti,
All right.
we might as well work it as we go, Senator. I think that's just fine.
Mr. Chairman, Taylor Rossetti, Support Services Administrator for YDOT again. As the good senator here mentions, the proposed amendment is here on page 2. I believe it was passed out to everybody, but I'll try to walk you through it. As the senator mentioned, we do have a strong partnership with Donor Alliance. About 61% of everybody who renews a driver's license or gets an ID card from us at Driver Services actually registers. That's actually probably about 98% of all the registrations in the state of Wyoming. So we have a very strong partnership there on the driver's license side. As the bill is drafted.
I'm sorry, it's really late, and I want to make sure I get that right. So out of everybody who renews a license, did you say that 61% of us put organ donation on there?
Mr. Chairman, as at the end of December, that was the statistic for 2021.
That's pretty good, isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes, we are a very generous state in lots of different ways. And our examiners are comfortable having conversations with individuals at the counter to discuss with them some of the very points the senator mentioned about no age limit and the types of tissues and organs that can be donated. So we do pretty well in that regard.
How about that? Thank you for going back over that.
Sure.
Please continue.
Sure. So as written here on line 15, there's some language there that says to register as an anatomical gift donor pursuant to the statute. And the rub that we got into as we were looking at this is that the information that's required to pass to get into the registry is not generally collected when you register a vehicle. We didn't want to have a situation where there was some confusion or even somebody registered somebody inadvertently. So if you take a look at the amendment, what we propose there on page 2, line 15 is to delete the language to register as an anatomical gift donor and continue that deletion on to line 16 and end that deletion after the first and after 35.5.205B and. So basically what that would read then is, starting on line 13, application form shall be available at all county treasurer's offices and shall include space on the application form to offer the option for the applicant to donate $1 or more to promote awareness. So that's how that would read. And then we go on further there on page 2 on line 23, and after the statutory reference for 35.5.225, we insert accompanying each application form provided under this subsection shall be information and appropriate materials to register as an anatomical gift donor. Mr. Chairman, the explanation of that language there is simply if the senator went in and purchased one of these plates, information would be passed and she would be able to then go and choose to register to become a donor. So that wouldn't be part of the registration, but we would handle that process as part of the registration, if that makes sense. That's the proposed amendment there, sir.
So, Mr. Rossetti, any problems with having all that material? Where's that going to come from, and are people going to have that material?
Mr. Chairman, I believe someone from the Donor Alliance is probably waiting in the wings online. They do supply that material already. It's readily available in multiple languages typically, so that's readily available.
Okay. Any questions on the proposed amendment, committee? Thank you, Mr. Rossetti. Appreciate it, and we walked that in, Senator. So please continue on your description of the bill.
Yeah, so over on page 3, that takes care of page 2. It just, the department, they'll arrange for that production. You probably noticed in the fiscal note, it takes a total of about $6,000 to do this. It's a pretty small amount. And within 2 years, it'll be revenue neutral. I'm fairly certain we'll be able to sell enough license plates to make it very easy to make that pretty much a zero deal. They'll have that distinctive symbol that I mentioned, and it's, like I said, I should have had some copies for you, and it is colored. I have the black and white, but the Donate Life, it's pretty much the same one, whether you're in Utah, other states. But it's very colorful, and it'll just be a little embossed part, just like you would see with your EMT or your fireman or whatever. It's just a little embossed thing right in the middle. And basically, the license plate will be the same size and color as a regular plate, so nothing new there. And again, as I mentioned before, down on the bottom of page 3, we've got to sell 1,000 sets of those license plates before 2031, or they'll be eliminated by 2033. So, and then there'll be a report on that. And I really think because of the fact, and Mr. Rossetti mentioned it, 61% of Wyomingites are already listed as donors. I think the national average is about 49%. So we already are above the national average. No reason we can't get better even. So again, I don't know if you have any questions on the back on page 4, but again, it just kind of gives the Department of Health and their council a chance to promote public awareness and actually even make it more of a big deal for people to think about organ and tissue donations, because even though we have a very high percentage here in Wyoming, I think there's people that are still out there waiting. I think I mentioned 2,000 in our region that are waiting for some type of organ donation. So that's pretty much the bill. Happy to answer any questions, or maybe Chairman Baldwin might open for some questions as well, since he's on the bill. Questions?
Question to the sponsor, Senator Pappas. Pardon me? You want to go to Senator Anderson?
Well, he was raising his hand
Oh,
first.
all right. I didn't realize you were first, Senator. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
bet.
realizing.
You bet.
Yeah, yeah.
Catching up.
So I have a couple questions. Is it possible to be an organ donor or just a heart donor? Or if you're an organ donor, are you a donor of organ, eyes, and tissue? Is that all inclusive?
Senator?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, I believe so. I believe that once you're in the system, that, they can use whatever,
Okay.
whatever part of you they'd love.
Yeah, yeah.
Follow-up,
All
Senator?
right. Yes, follow up, please. The other question is that sticker that you've got, can't we just put that on a regular license plate? Do we have to get a special license plate?
Senator Sheila?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, I believe that the embossing has to be put on by White Odd. I believe I don't think it is a sticker. I think it's embossing. Am I correct on that, Rossetti?
I think, Mr. Rossetti, it's part of the plate, isn't it? It's part of the,
Mr. Chairman, yes, adding decals and stickers to plates is problematic. It would actually be designed like our other specialty plates. So we'd use the same background. We would just import the graphics onto the plate.
further questions? Senator Pappas?
So the person who's interested in increasing the awareness can get these plates, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the donor, right? Correct? Because some can't, right? But they could be. My question is then, well, that's fine, but I have a second question. On line 12, what is that fee on 313102A, Roman 8? What fee is that?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure which page you're on, so do you?
Page 2.
Page 2.
Mr. Rossetti?
Yeah, it's probably a question for
I'm
Mr.
looking your
Rossetti.
direction because I'm thinking you might know that.
Mr. Chairman, I hate to jump in front of the senators
No,
here.
do. Please do.
I always hate to jump, yeah.
That's the standard $30 fee that is typically attached when we do these specialty plates.
It's
Yes.
$30.
Yep.
Okay. That's what I.
So, Mr. Rossetti, thanks for that because I couldn't remember. I have one of those brown and gold license plates, but that was an additional fee on that one, I believe. And so I didn't know what these cost. So that $30 is, Senator, what you were referring to, that we have to sell about 1,000 of them to break even, right?
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Senator Pappas?
No, I thought 1,000 was just to continue production, not to necessarily break even, right?
Well,
1,000 is to continue production.
right.
Is there a break even on less number of plates or?
I'm going to turn it over to White Odd again. I'm so
Senator
glad he's
Sheila?
here.
Mr. Chairman and Senator
Mr.
Pappas,
Rossetti.
the fiscal note is there, and that's just, an accumulation of doing these over time. It's just, there's some standard programming fees and design fees that go into doing a new plate. It's a policy decision for you guys. If you direct us to do it, we'll do it. We just try to give you guys that information so that you understand, what the cost can be when we go down these roads. It's not that I'm not concerned with the expenditure. It's just that is not something that I would stand up and say, don't do this because those costs are there. I think as it's proposed in the fiscal note, it's real close to break even at about 1,000. So
It's just follow on. It's ironic, or not ironic, but it's nice that it's about the 8-year cycle, right? Is that how you picked the date? So the last 8 years?
Senator Schuler?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, that's correct. When we
You
worked
can't
on
sneak
the,
anything past Senator
no,
Pappas. I
no,
tell you.
he's pretty sharp.
Yeah, he's on it. Well, thank you for a description of the bill. Senator McEwen, you got something? No. Okay. Senator Murphy. Senator Schuler, if you could hang real quick, I want to go to some public testimony. I understand we do have somebody online tonight that we would love to hear from. So let's go there first.
Okay, we have Eric Quinney and Jennifer Prince from the Donor Alliance. I'll admit both.
Aaron, Quinny, and what was the other name? Jennifer? If you're online, if you could hit your video button. There we go. Miss Quinny and Miss Prince, thank you for being here tonight. I hope I pronounced those right. And take it away. We'd love to hear from both of you, whoever's first.
I'll let Jennifer go first. So give a minute for hopefully for my son to get home from school.
Wonderful.
Back from drama practice, right?
Yep.
Go. Good evening, Ms. Prince. Thanks for being here.
Chairman Landon, thank you so much for the opportunity to address the committee, and thank you to Senator Schuler for bringing this bill forward. We support the bill. We appreciate the amendment just to clarify how someone would be able to join the donor registry. Thank you for bringing that language forward. There were a couple of questions that you asked. You asked specifically about the donor designation rate, and I do appreciate Mr. Rossetti and Senator Schuler sharing the end of 2021's data with you. In January, 62.1% of the people from Wyoming who went to get a driver's license or a state ID card registered to be a donor. Wyoming is consistently in the top 5 US states for donor designation. There's tremendous support. I know I don't have to tell you in the committee that. It's been amazing. When Donor Alliance is doing community awareness events within the state, we often, if not nearly always, hear a question about having the specialty plate. So we appreciate the consideration. I know it's a late night for you, and I'll certainly yield to the star here on the video. Thank you so much.
Well, Ms. Prince, thank you. Any questions for the Donor Alliance tonight? Thank you, Ms. Prince. I appreciate if you can stay put in case we have a question a little bit later. But we are anxious to come back to Mr. Quinny. I see that you've got somebody there with you.
Yep, he finally made it home from drama practice, and we're excited to be here in front of the committee talking about a cause that's special to us. As you heard earlier, Bryson was born with only half a heart and had 3 open heart surgeries within his first 3 years of life. And then was able to receive the gift of life in March of 2020, right in the onset of the pandemic. So getting an organ transplant right in the middle of a pandemic has been a unique challenge, but certainly has given us a new appreciation for really what organ donation is and really how many people are out there waiting. When Bryson was waiting in the hospital, inpatient for several months, he was able to have a 14-year-old girl named Mackenzie, a couple doors down, that was also waiting for a heart and kidney. It was going to be her second heart. And shortly after Bryson received his heart, time ran out for Mackenzie. And she didn't get her heart. And it certainly gave us the opportunity to want to get involved in this cause, to raise awareness. That, and just in our region alone right now, there's like 2,000 people waiting for organ, eye, and tissue donations. And the time is going to run out for some of those people. And we're grateful that it didn't run out for Bryson. And the likelihood of him needing a second heart transplant down the road is high. And this is a cause that is just really near and dear to us, and to raise the awareness and join 29 other states that have specialty license plates promoting organ donation. And we need to add the iconic Wyoming license plate to that mix to do that. What do you think, Bryson? What do you got to say?
Not much, but organ donation does mean a lot to me. And losing Mackenzie was really hard to kind of go through, knowing that a lot of people go through that. I was lucky to get my heart in time, but not everyone gets that time. Their time just runs out for them, which is really sad for those families that just know that their 13-year-old girl is gone because of a heart wasn't there in time. So I think promoting this is really, really strong, and it should happen a lot more than it is.
Bryson, let me just welcome you to the Senate Transportation Committee meeting tonight. I'm glad you got home from drama in time to visit with us. It's an honor for us to hear from you tonight. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Committee, any questions for Bryson? We're thrilled to hear your story, Bryson, and thanks for advocating and getting with the two senators. And Dad, anything else you want to add to your testimony tonight?
Just that we're grateful to be here. Like I said, this is an important cause, and I know that there might be some reluctance to go down the road of opening specialty license plates to a lot of different causes, but this cause is life and death, and would like to make Wyoming state number 30 in promoting organ donation on our iconic license plates, and kind of be a leader in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. And Bryson, keep doing good things over there in school, and we'll hear, by way of the grapevine, how that play goes. So good luck there.
All righty, thank you very much.
All righty, thanks, everybody. And anything else, Ms. Prince, that you'd like to add before we go to testimony in the room?
I myself am a donor family and a recipient family, and it's fantastic to see Bryson. And that's the story. That's the reason why the Donate Life Wyoming license plate would make all the difference. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, I want to go to anybody who would like to testify in the, excuse me, Kim, Donna.
We have one more
Oh, we have one more
person.
online?
Shall I admit them?
My apologies. Let's catch whoever it is online first, and then we'll come inside the room. So please admit whoever.
I'm admitting Juanita Mayer.
Juanita? Juanita, if you would turn on your video for us and your audio, we'd love to hear from you. And I didn't quite catch your last name, so please join us. Are you there? One more time for Juanita. Donna, do you still have her? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Quinney.
I do know Juanita Mayor. Hopefully she's joining on here. I think I just got her audio.
Yeah, I've got the audio on, I think now. Let me get the video back on.
Okay, good deal. I think the audio's coming through well, so.
Well, okay, it's not going to hurt you to not see me, I guess. I was privileged to be Bryson's teacher when he was a 6th grader, which was when he was really, really sick before he got his heart transplant. And so it was really exciting for our entire school when he did get his transplant. And it was nice to know someone in person who truly needed a life-saving organ. I'm a cornea recipient, but knowing Bryson made all the difference in the world when our daughter-in-law called and said that our son was on life support at the hospital. And we needed to know right away whether we would support organ donation. And having known Bryson that well as his teacher made our decision completely obvious. Absolutely, we would support organ donation. And I think that personal conversation, personal knowing someone who was a life-saving organ recipient made it easier to make that decision. And I think that the specialty license plate opens the door for conversation to get to know other people and realize that organ donation is so necessary and that there are so many people waiting. And then it just makes it more of a natural decision. So our family would really thank you for supporting this bill.
Juanita, again, I missed your last name and I apologize for that, but thank you so much for your testimony.
Welcome. Thank you guys for staying up late to work on this.
Absolutely. Any questions of either of the families? That's a little tough on a guy who is a Pisces, but so compelling. Really, really appreciated that testimony. So, okay, let's go inside the room, and anyone who would like to testify, please come forward. Mr. Rossetti?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I have one last thing, and I certainly
I'm
work with the
sorry,
committee.
everybody. Go ahead,
I don't
Mr.
want to, belabor this, but if this bill were to go through, we will probably need to revisit 31-212, which is the lost and mutilated plate statute. We just updated it last year, but if we add this plate, we'll need to update that statute. I could certainly work with somebody in the committee, get a floor amendment or something to just include that in case the plate were to move forward.
If you don't mind doing that, Mr. Rossetti, Senator, I'm looking at that. That sounds great, and we can work a committee of the whole or even a second on that one. How about that? Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rossetti. Appreciate it. And I didn't mean to push you out of the way. Just okay, Lanny, welcome back to the front. By golly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee. Couple things. One is I'm proud to be an organ donor on my driver's license. I'm one of that 62%.
Just for the record, Mr. Applegate, can you tell us again who you are? Just okay. Thank you. Please.
With 47 years involved with the Wyoming Fire Service. And although I've never met Bryson physically, I have basically, it seems like I've known him my entire life. I got to see Bryson the day through pictures, videos, the day he went down the hallway on a gurney. And I've followed him ever since, very closely. I know his dad extremely well, and I'm pretty proud of him. Bryson's a tough young man. I wish I had his strength. So,
Thank you, Mr.
but
Applegate.
I fully support this awareness plate. It's a great deal. I appreciate Senator Schuler and Senator Baldwin bringing it forward, and I ask for your guys' support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Applegate. Any question? Okay, thank you. Gentlemen, who's first?
Mr. Chairman, my name's Shad Cooper. Excuse me, long day. I'm the fire chief for Sublette County Unified Fire, and I've known Eric Quinney for many years and followed Bryson in his journey, and just wanted to express our appreciation for hearing this bill and would urge your support. It's a great bill, and we appreciate everything that you've done.
Mr. Cooper, you're the fire chief. Where is that again?
Sublette County.
In Sublette?
Yes, sir.
How about that? A lot of great things came out of Sublette, I'll tell you that.
Some did.
Yeah, being a
Some did.
former Pinedale Wrangler, I've just seen a lot of great things out of Sublette. Okay, thanks a lot, Mr. Cooper. Appreciate it. Welcome. Just make it green.
Chairman
and-
Landon, I'm Jerry Parker, Park County Fire District 2 in Cody, Wyoming. I am the administrator and also know Eric and support his efforts and appreciate you guys passing this on.
Parker, thank you. Appreciate you guys being here. It means a lot. And any questions for? Okay, good. Thank you all. Really appreciate it.
I have one question.
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, do we have this named incorrectly? Special license plate organ donations? Should we do something for Briston or something? Should we put his name on this, or is there more than that, more people than that?
You know, Senator Anderson, I appreciate the heartfelt thought there. I'm not sure that we can change the title of the bill at this point.
Yeah.
That's, and I'm
All right.
looking back at the sponsor, and maybe you guys thought about that, but yeah, not a bad thought. Thanks again, gentlemen. Appreciate it. All right. So anybody else like to come forward and testify on this? Department, Mr. Rossetti, thanks for the lift tonight. Heavy lift on several. Director, thank you for staying up late with us. I'm going to close public testimony on this bill. Committee, what's your pleasure? Okay, moved by Furphy, seconded by Pappas. Discussion.
We need to move the amendment.
We do have a proposed amendment. Did you just move that, Senator McEwen?
Yes.
Okay, And moved, seconded by Pappas. Proposed amendment, any questions, discussion? All in favor of the proposed amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. That amendment passes. We're back on the bill. Anything else on Senate File 52? Tim, would you please take roll on Senate File 52
Senate File
as
50
amended?
as amended. Senator Anderson,
Aye.
Senator Furphy, Senator McEwen,
Aye.
Senator Pappas, Chairman Landon.
Aye.
5 ayes do pass.
Senator, we look forward to your presentation
Amended.
up above, and we'll be right behind you. It's a good effort, and Senator Baldwin, thank you for your help with the bill as well, and appreciate you guys staying up late with us. The committee, that completes our Senate work. And we don't have any bills other than those ones that came from the other side, so we'll begin on Monday to consider those. Okay? And tomorrow we go onward. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the cause, committee? Okay.